Hello and welcome back to r/entitled parents. And if you're new here, I hope you enjoy. Entitled Dad demands I fail because I caused his daughter to fail. This one will need a lot of context, so bear with me here. I'm 19 at college. Last year I started the language education career. My first language is Spanish, and even though I often have mistakes, I can understand and speak English. I realised I wasn't in the right place, so I dropped out during the first semester. So now I'm studying theatre, which has always been my true passion. Anyway, during my first semester on language education, we had to do tutoring as a part of our grade. The college I went to also had language classes on Saturdays for anyone who wanted to learn a second language. This college only allowed people on their language education's career that had either completed the Saturday's course or that could prove that they can speak at least 2 languages by a written and oral exam. So I was doing tutoring for an English speaker that struggled in their Spanish lessons. One of my students was an 18-year-old girl who stood out by her absence. She didn't show up, not even once, and never gave me a heads up or explained afterwards why she didn't. I just reported with my teacher that she didn't appear, then reached out to her to reschedule the date of our meeting and call it a day. We were given our students or their parents' contact numbers to set up the day and hour of our meetings within the college facilities. Then the teacher had to assign a classroom for the tutorings and had a full reporting of every lesson that they did. Nothing of interest happened until a few days ago. I received a call from a number I didn't recognise, and to highlight my lack of intelligence, I answered. Me. Hello, who's this? Entitled Dad. Are you? Says my name. Yes, I am. What can I help you with? It's your fault that my daughter failed her exams. Excuse me, I don't know what... You tutored her, and she didn't learn anything from you. You sabotaged her and made her fail. I'm going to report you to your teacher and make you fail too. Sir, I dropped out last year. Entitled Father. Well, that's because of your incompetence. Then you should pay me for wasting my time by taking her to your classes. Sir, who is your daughter? Entitled Father. I'm not telling you anything. Listen, I need to know her name to give it to my ex-teacher so he can tell you about my tutoring with her. Entitled Father says daughter's name. Sir, she didn't show up once. Don't you dare lie to me. I took her tutoring every time you summoned her. I want to talk to your teacher right now. I guess he forgot that I told him that I had dropped out. Me. Wait a moment. I checked my cell phone for my teacher's number and quickly gave him a heads up on what was happening. It's this number here. Anything... Entitled Father hung up on me. A while later, my teacher informed me of how rude the parent was with him and how he complained about me, saying I've been rude to him and I lied, telling him his daughter never showed up to tutoring, and demanded I had to fail this semester. The teacher explained, again, I've dropped out, then showed him the empty reports of her tutoring and explained to him that her daughter and I never met. He told me that after he sent him the reports, the dad stayed silent for like 20 seconds and then hung up on him. So I guess I won't fail at the college that I don't go to. Entitled Mother calls me a Satanist for wearing a Doom t-shirt. Gets owned. Back in the days when I was a teen, I used to have a very cool t-shirt featuring a demon from the now ancient Doom PC game. It was the middle of the week when I went to the supermarket while wearing said t-shirt. Shortly upon entering, there was Entitled Mother and her child, who I walked past. Her child immediately notices my t-shirt. Look mum, he's got that cool Doom t-shirt. It was all happening behind my back, and after a short pause, no son, that is an evil man, we don't associate with those people, followed shortly by a snarl in my general direction. Satanist. I ignored it and continued on with my shopping. A few minutes later we encounter each other again, the child trying to explain to his mother, but mum, I like this shirt, it's from a video game. Entitled Mother interrupts her son, then snarls at me again. Son, that is an evil man and I will not have him promote his evil cult. You cannot have this shirt. He's a devil worshipper. I got irritated, but I let this one pass too, as I was in a hurry. A short time passes again, and I queue up at the register. An entitled mother sets up behind me. Again, the son tries to explain, but entitled mother shuts him down outright, then snarls at me again. I will not buy that shirt, and that's final. Find Jesus and repent. Having had enough, I put up the most cult-like, wide-eyed face I could imagine, cross my hands behind my back to appear non-threatening, and walk right up to entitled mother's face, acting out the role she had given me, calmly. You may pretend to piety among your peers, but just like your puny god, the Dark Lord also sees all and hears all. What dark thoughts have you harboured? What foul deeds have you carried out in supposed secret? Do you really think the judgments and covetings you have made in the dark have gone unnoticed? Twice condemned is the one who sins, then repents and sins again. Please have a blessed life, because your afterlife... I paused. Most certainly won't be. I look in her shopping cart, then back at her face. You forgot the barbecue sauce. Last time I saw the entitled mother was when I was leaving the store with my groceries, and she was loading hers onto the register with shaky hands. Pale skin and a distressed look on her face. I'm not a Satanist, by the way, I'm agnostic. I also look younger than I actually am, because I have a poisonous tongue, and a few times I have to bite it. It works like Botox therapy. Father is hurt that I didn't tell him I was depressed, tells people he has 2 children instead of 3. Don't know if it fits here, let me know otherwise. Since so many of you like my last post, here is another one. Read my first post for a little background if you like, but basically I have an older sister, younger brother, who's a special needs child, and my mother, stepfather, and father. This is something that happened over a long period of time, and one might say that I'm jealous of my sister because of this. It started when I had just ended my 2nd year of high school. I was depressed and had severe anxiety about basically anything at this point. I had stayed at my ex-boyfriend's family for almost 4 months when I moved back to father. Our relationship was already damaged at this point, but I didn't get better after this. I spent 1 weekend at father's, but every night I cried myself to sleep. I was so exhausted from all the stress that had built up, trying to maintain a relationship that seemed one-sided. I talked to my ex's father and asked for advice. We talked, and I felt it was best to move to them, permanently. They noticed me, they saw that I was depressed, they said they could help me, but in retrospect, it only made things worse. I told my father, and he became cold. He only said, okay. Didn't ask why or anything. This made me feel so bad, like I'd really hurt him by making that decision. The day I moved, he only stared at his computer, didn't say anything to me. He only said goodbye to me when I had taken all my things. I tried to talk to him for years after this, but he either ignored me or told me to talk to my new family. I was conflicted. I felt horrible. I didn't know what to do. I tried to mend things with father after I graduated high school. I explained why I had moved previously. He said, "Why didn't you tell me? I can't read your mind. How was I supposed to know you were so sad?" Yes, he used the word sad to describe my depression. I tried to explain to him why, that I didn't want to say anything because that would mean I had to accept that I was depressed. I was in denial for the longest time. It wasn't until I almost jumped from the 7th floor that I came to realise how bad it was. Thanks to a friend of mine who had my mother's phone number, my mother called me and on a whim I answered while I was in full panic mode. I guess this is when my mother also realised how bad my depression was. She begged my friend to take me home to her, and when we did, I just collapsed. My mother stepped up and drove me to doctor after doctor, and finally we got to see a psychiatrist who prescribed me medication. We had this conversation after all this, and I felt strong enough to ask mother to get father to come so we could talk. Father then came with his oh so familiar quote he liked to use when he felt he was right and I was wrong. "You should have listened to me and done what I told you. Then we wouldn't be in this situation right now." And that was the end of that conversation. Fast forward a few years after my son has been born. This was when I last spoke to father, eye to eye. I later sent him a message, asking what I have done wrong. He answered, "Nothing that I'm aware of." I answered back, "Then why won't you respond to me when I call or text you?" I never got another message again. A few years fly away, and my mother calls me one New Year's Eve to tell me some Good news and bad news. I was afraid to ask, but I wanted to know. Mother told the good news first. Father and sister had finally signed the adoption papers. I was so happy for them. I told Mother to congratulate them for me, as I had no way of contacting them. Both father and sister had blocked my number and blocked me on every social media. That's when Mother became serious. She took a deep breath before she broke the bad news. Father had gone around telling people he had 2 children, sister and brother. When people had asked him about me, he had only repeated to them that he had 2 children. He no longer acknowledged me as his daughter. My mother noticed how I became quiet, and so she tried to comfort me, saying now that she had finally got a good relationship with me, she would never let me go again. This is years after the phone incident. Mother told me that father and sister had tried to get mother and stepfather to ignore me and shut me out too. She had refused and yelled at them for even suggesting such a thing. I didn't know what to feel, hearing how I, a daddy's girl, no longer had a father after 20 years, on and off. He basically disowned me. I wanted to cry, but I held it in. I had my son next to me, and I'm so thankful for it. If he hadn't been there, I would have probably attempted again. I broke down after my son fell asleep. I later found out that I could access his Facebook, and I could confirm it by myself. He had written, "My family consists of sister and brother's names. There was nothing else." By this time, I had completely shut down. I'm kind of glad that Mother told me instead of finding out by myself later. I know I haven't been the best daughter or even a good one at times. I've done some pretty bad things for attention. I've lied to get friends. I've made decisions I regret to this day. I was a depressed teenager, for goodness sake. But it just hurts so much. 5 years have since passed. And when I visited Mother and met Father, they lived in the same town, he still ignored me. He acted like I wasn't there. He turned his head when he saw me, turned his back at me, or only answered my greetings out of a hateful politeness.